All right there, everyone. The British Parliament has blocked Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit plan, leading the UK to the brink of snap elections. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. You know, we're going to cut through all of the confusion and disarray, and we're going to get right to the heart of the matter. We're going to find out what the real takeaway is from all of this and what we can expect to happen in the very near future in Britain. But first, I'm sure we've all seen the devastation from Hurricane Dorian and the tragic conditions it's left in its wake. And as disturbing as these scenes are, they do serve as reminders to all of us that the last thing we want to do is wait for a disaster before we respond to one. The way we protect our loved ones is by preparing for emergencies, and no one makes that easier or more affordable than a good friend of this channel, and that's My Patriot Supply. Now, September is National Preparedness Month, and in honor of that, My Patriot Supply is offering you $100 off a 4-week emergency food supply if you click on the link below to my special website. You heard that right, $100 off, and they'll even include free shipping with your order. But don't wait until it's too late. Get prepared by clicking on the link below and get your 4-week emergency food supply today. It's never a dull moment. Britain may now be facing what I believe is the 5th national election in 4 years. Literally overnight, very similar to what we saw in Italy, right, with the collapse of their governing coalition there literally overnight. Britain's government was thrown into chaos just within the last 24 to 36 hours, if you were not aware. I'll try to give you here just a quick breakdown of the events as they happened. First, you had a supposed member of the Conservative Party, okay? That's Prime Minister Boris Johnson's party, the Tories or the Conservatives. They're known by both names if you get confused there. You have this member going rogue, okay? He went rogue and defected to the Soviets, okay? He's a hardcore Remainer who defected from the Conservatives and joined the far-left Liberal Democrats. That defection cost Johnson dearly in terms of what remained of the razor-thin majority he had to work with in Parliament. Now, as the result of that defection, Boris couldn't afford to lose a single member of the Conservatives or from the Democratic Unionist Party from Northern Ireland, who the Conservatives are in coalition with the Unionists. Then later on in the evening, the Parliament voted 328 to 321 to wrench control over the Brexit process from Boris and formally reject any possibility of a no-deal Brexit. And this passed only because 21 Tory members, the so-called Tory rebels, themselves defected and voted with Labour in order to scrap a no-deal Brexit. What this means then is that now Boris is handcuffed. He will not be able to carry out his pledge to leave the European Union by October 31st. And so these members of Parliament are actually coming out and saying, if you can believe it, that there needs to be a third delay, a third extension. Now, Boris isn't taking this sitting down. He fired those 21 Tories. The technical term is they lost the whip. Again, technically speaking, a whip consists of the formal instructions members of a party are given in terms of how to vote so that the party in power is able to effectively exercise its majority. By losing the whip, these 21 Tories will not be allowed to run as Tories, as Conservatives in the next election, unless the whip is restored. So they're basically sitting in Parliament right now as default independents at this point. It's a very decisive move on the part of Boris without question. So not only did he fire these 21 rebel Tories, but now he's calling for snap elections. And the polls seem to be backing up Boris's bravado at this point. Right now, according to the latest polls, the Conservatives are pouncing Labour, right? Britain elects has the Conservatives at 32% support, while Labour is down to 26%, and it gets better. The Brexit Party is beating the Liberal Democrats, 16% to 15%. And Nigel Farage, the leader of this brand new Brexit Party, has said that he's ready to form a coalition with Boris's Conservatives to make this Brexit happen one way or another. So the Conservatives seem to clearly have the advantage right now if they were to hold a snap election, okay? But regardless, if we take a step back here or just get more of an aerial view of what's been going on over the last 3 years, I think things become rather clear in terms of the intentions of Westminster. So here's how I'm very indebted to the British scholar Matthew Goodwin here in terms of how he summarizes the whole Brexit debacle from the vantage point of Westminster. He does this in a single tweet. It's on my Twitter feed, but I'll elaborate here. First, you have members of Parliament agreeing to a referendum on the question of Brexit 3 years ago, right? Should Britain leave the EU? The members of Parliament, Westminster, agree to hold this referendum. The referendum is held, and over 17.4 million Brits vote to leave. Okay, that's a larger voting total than any prior election in the history of Britain. The members of Parliament, including one of the key champions for remaining, Theresa May, all say, all right, we agree that this exit from the European Union has to be realized. The voters' wishes have to be respected. They then, in turn, rejected a deal 3 times without ever telling us what alternative they have. In the process, the members of Parliament vote for 2 extensions of the date for when Britain is supposed to leave the EU. So we have a pattern of dither and delay over the last 3 years, right? Theresa May resigns in disgrace, and then Boris Johnson enters. He does what Theresa May should have done. He wants a deal with Brussels, but knows he'll get that only if a no-deal Brexit is on the table. Holding billions of euros ransom from Brussels is the only way to get Brussels to the negotiating table. Otherwise, Brussels has all the leverage, right? That's what happened with May. Brussels has all the leverage, and Britons are 100% at the mercy of the bureaucrats in the EU. All right. What do the members of Parliament do? They turn around and they take the no deal off the freaking table. They say no to the possibility of a no-deal Brexit. And then they have the goal to turn around and say, you know, we wouldn't mind a 3rd extension. They want to continue the policy ad nauseum of dither and delay. So Boris says, fine. You want to reject my Brexit plans? Fine. Let's have a snap election. That's what Nigel Farage is saying, right? Hey, if the Brexit Party and the Tories band together, we'll be unstoppable. That's their confidence right now. And the polls, like I said, do suggest at the moment the Conservatives have a strong edge over Labour, with Brexit Party also having a strong edge over the Liberal Democrats. And that should give them a governing coalition to see Brexit through. So Boris says, fine, let's have a snap election. And the freaking MPs respond, the members of Parliament, they respond by saying, well, we don't know about that. I don't know if Jeremy Corbyn is already dragging his heels with that. So the pattern over the last 3 years has clearly been one of dither and delay by a ruling class that does not want to dismantle globalist political and economic arrangements that serve to benefit the ruling class. Now, what does all this mean? Okay, what's the real takeaway from all this? Astute observers are pointing out that this is not the first time something like this has happened. There was another nation that had a national referendum on their relationship with the EU that passed with a clear majority, but then was not honored. Any takers on that one? It was back in 2005. How many of you guessed France? France had a referendum back in 2005. Okay, it was over whether to ratify the new European Constitution. And the ratification went down, very similar to Brexit. The French voted against the ratification by 55% of the vote. And much of that was from the idea that this was a threat to France's sovereignty. So 55% of the French public voted against the ratification of the new EU Constitution. But the members of the French Parliament, after a few years, voted for it anyway. And so a number of astute observers are pointing out, including, by the way, a senior French politician, they're pointing out that if the members of Parliament don't honor the Brexit, then they can expect the same surge in nationalist populist sentiment that France has experienced because of their betrayal of the voters. It's a very interesting observation. And again, Matthew Goodwin is noting this observation here on his Twitter feed. If Westminster continues to dither and delay, if they continue to ignore the will of the British people as expressed in a formal national referendum, then we may be seeing Farage and Boris on steroids in the not-too-distant future. In other words, the real takeaway from all of this is that this blatant sabotaging of the Brexit referendum by globalist-addicted politicians and media pundits is only going to fuel the rise of the nationalist populist right throughout Britain. You can take that to the bank. They are only prolonging the inevitable, because even those who voted to remain, like, say, Good Morning Britain host Piers Morgan has said and pointed out, even those who voted to remain believe the results of the referendum need to be honored. A democracy works only when those who've lost a vote accept its outcome. And if the gentry liberal class, if our left-wing globalist liberals refuse to accept the results of a referendum simply because they lost, Nigel Farage said it best, then they're about to take Britain into a very dark place, one that I believe will result in a massive populist uprising that will make Brexit look little more than a dress rehearsal. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check out some of our awesome merch that celebrates all things nationalist, populist, and traditional. So the links below. And please click on either our Patreon, subscribe to our PayPal links below, and consider becoming a monthly supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. God bless.